Hey, give me that!
Sorry, I wasn't trying to be nosy. Obviously, she was a good friend.
It's putting it mildly.
When we first talk to Chloe about Rachel, Chloe makes it very clear that they were more than just friends, that they had a closer connection. Throughout the game, we start to learn how close their relationship really was. Chloe was in love with Rachel, and it would seem that Rachel felt the same way about Chloe. Many people do have relationships with more than one person. However, Rachel had secret relationships and was keeping her other lovers secret from Chloe, and it seemed like she was actively trying to hide her involvement with other people.
Maybe we can focus on rescuing Rachel now?
Rachel? Is that why you're really here?
Yes, we're so close to finding her now, Frank. We need all the help we can get now, especially from you.
You and Chloe do not know Rachel like I did, and I couldn't even help her. You're in way over your heads.
We don't have much time, Frank. Rachel needs you.
It's too late! She's gone! You don't even know her!
Like you did? I loved her, asshole! And she loved me. I know that.
Chloe, you don't know shit! You were part of her problem, always trying to take her away from me.
In the conversation we have with Frank in the 4th episode, they get into it about Rachel. Chloe says she loves her, and Rachel loved her too. And this upset Frank because he was also in love with Rachel and had a relationship with her. We also know by the note Rachel wrote for Chloe in the junkyard that Rachel wanted to tell Chloe about one of her relationships. I don't think it was Frank. I think it was Mr. Jefferson, or possibly Nathan. It's pretty obvious that Rachel had a relationship with Mr. Jefferson of at least a sexual nature.
Now, how do you know this?
You have a lot to learn here, Blackwell. Rachel Amber absolutely had sex with him.
He also seemed as though he may have cared about Rachel too.
Rachel? Whatever the fuck.
When we approach Nathan in the diner, he seems very happy to see Rachel. I think there was more between Nathan and Rachel than what happened in the dark room. From the conversation, it sounds like Nathan had feelings for Rachel. I believe that the letter in the junkyard was most likely about Jefferson, but could have been about Nathan too. So, we've established she had relationships with Chloe, Frank, Jefferson, and possibly Nathan, and she wasn't straightforward about them. We've also established that she lied and possibly pretended to be in love with more than one person. Why would she pretend to do all of these things? What does this have to do with the plot? And why did she want Frank's stash in the first place? I have a few theories that I will go over as to why Rachel's relationships would tie into the plot. My first theory is that Rachel's death was not planned by Mr. Jefferson, that it was spontaneous and possibly accidental. I think there's more going on between Jefferson and Rachel than her just being his victim. Rachel obviously had feelings for Jefferson. She made it sound like in her note that she was smitten by him. Perhaps Jefferson influenced her to get him drugs so that he could use them in the darkroom. But then, when she found out what he was going to use them for, he had no more use for her. He obviously had a deeper relationship with Rachel than he did with Kate. They both are victims of Jefferson, but in the conversation we have with him, he talks about them very differently.
Rachel was nothing like Kate.
Maybe Jefferson is upset that Rachel died, or maybe he had to kill her because she had gotten too involved with him and she knew too much. She woke up and got mad at Jefferson, so he had to kill her.
Seems weird to think about partying with all those Rachel Amber posters up.
You're high. Rachel used to hang out with us too. She was a blast. Smart, not bitchy like, you know.
You knew Rachel Amber.
I knew she liked to party. Fun to be around. Oh, yeah, and she was hot.
Rachel was actually a member of the Vortex Club?
No. Rachel was like her own club. She was actually too cool for us. And I'll deny I ever said that.
Another theory I have is that Rachel was actually working with Jefferson and is an antagonist in the story. Apparently, she saw right through the Vortex Club, and she was too cool for them. Does this mean that she knew what was going on behind the Vortex Club? Maybe Jefferson is the guy who changed her life by giving her this opportunity, and she started working for him. So if she was working with Jefferson, the reason she had a relationship with Frank was to get drugs for Jefferson, and possibly the reason she was so close with Chloe was so that she could lure Chloe to the dark room. After Rachel disappeared, Nathan still tried to get the picture of Chloe in his room, perhaps because the plan to get Chloe into the dark room failed. So Nathan tried to go at it on his own without using Jefferson or Rachel to do it more professionally, if you can call it that. So if she was working with Jefferson, why is she dead? Perhaps she was making too much noise, drawing too much attention to herself. And then Jefferson decided she needed to be disposed of. So he used her in a darkroom project. That's why we see the angry picture of her in her binder. She was furious at Jefferson for betraying her like that. Chloe makes it clear that Rachel would do just about anything to get famous or to get money. So it's plausible that Rachel could have been influenced by her desire for fame and stardom to be a villain in the story. We also see that she wanted to get out of Arcadia Bay. She tells Chloe that she wants to run away with her to LA. But then she also tells Frank that she wants to drive away from Arcadia Bay, just the two of them. So who was she lying to? Was she lying to Chloe? Was she lying to Frank? Or was she lying to both of them to further her own means? We know that Jefferson was hosting the Everyday Heroes contest, and he was going to bring the winner with him to San Francisco. Maybe Rachel saw an opportunity for him to take her away, too.
They really were besties. That could have been me instead of Rachel.
We find a letter in the junkyard that Rachel wrote for Chloe, but never gave to her. Upon reading it, it really seems like she cared about Chloe and wanted to tell her about these things, but she was afraid. There are a bunch of other things in the junkyard that indicate she really cared about Chloe and loved her. Also, with Frank, when we find the letters to him and the pictures that she took with his dog, it reads about the same. She does seem like she cared and she was invested in their relationship. If she was faking these things, it was extremely well thought out, and she was a very good actress. It doesn't mean that it's impossible for her to be a villain. She could have been purposefully using Chloe and Frank, but she also could have just been a confused teenager who didn't know how to handle her relationships properly.
Everybody knows Frank is a liar and a loser. Even Rachel did.
Yet Rachel Amber hung out with him more than you.
So, Rachel wanted Frank's stash. She let him take pictures, then he carries around her photo like she posed for love.
A final theory I have involves Nathan. If Nathan is actively rebelling against what's going on in the dark room, he would have needed an ally or someone to confide in. We know that person is not Victoria because Victoria didn't know about the dark room. Maybe it was Rachel. Maybe he talked with Rachel and maybe they both pretend to work for Jefferson, but are secretly trying to find a way to undermine it or bring it down. Perhaps Jefferson got wind of Rachel wanting to sabotage the project and killed her. I think this would be the most interesting theory. If she had a relationship with Nathan and they worked together to try and bring down the operation, the letter would have been about Nathan, that he is scary and unconventional and he's been through some shit. That could define Nathan. Nathan seems thoroughly upset about Rachel, about the fact that she's dead. With his reaction to Max's clothing in the diner, plus it's obvious he's been poring over the news clippings about Rachel in the dark room. His jacket's there on the couch, and the clippings about Rachel missing are there on the table. Someone's been looking at them. Maybe the reason he couldn't save Rachel from death was because he was drugged during the photo taking also. I wouldn't put it past Jefferson to drug Nathan and Rachel to get more real looking pictures. I'm not 100% sure how exactly Rachel's relationships tie into the plot. I find it very interesting, though, that she was just so likable and she's referenced so heavily in everything we do in the story. Maybe she just really cared about everyone and wanted to make everyone happy, kind of like Max does with her rewind powers. Could Rachel's relationships possibly be mirroring Max's? As in, the way we try to make Chloe happy and Warren happy? I think that there's definitely more going on with Rachel in the story. They've made such a big deal out of finding Rachel. So many things are connected to Rachel. But we know that Rachel was not perfect. She lied to the people she seemed to care about, whether it was for good reasons or bad reasons. There seems to be so much information about Rachel, yet so little knowledge about Rachel.
I still have a million questions about what's happening to Arcadia Bay.
That must be why Miss Gant says you're one of her favorite students at Blackwell.
I keep thinking that Rachel Amber has a few answers, if we can find her.